Yeah, so that's going to be difficult to read. So thanks for coming along to this session. I'm surprised to see so many of you here to hear about backup and the cloud. It's always interesting to see how many people turn up for a session like this. I'm guessing the room next door that's containers or something is just packed. So I'm going to talk to you about Azure Backup Server. Who has heard of Azure Backup Server before? Right, that's more hands than usual. I did a longer version of this presentation a few weeks ago in Germany, and I called it Microsoft's best kept secret. This is, I think, a very cool solution, especially when you start looking at the price of it. So my name is Aidan Finn. I am technical sales lead of a technology distributor or wholesaler here in Ireland, just off the M50 road to the airport. I'm an MVP, one of many MVPs here this weekend, in the cloud data center management or Hyper-V expertise. My background is in Windows Server, systems management, virtualization and all that stuff. You can find me online on Twitter and blogging. I write for petri.com as well, which is the sister site of Thurop.com, or the Blue Whale Web. This is not my first time speaking at E2EBC, or as it was previously called, Pub Forum. The first time I spoke at Pub Forum was in 2008, a few miles up the road. And I dared talk about Hyper-V when it was brand new. In fact, it was still a beta. And the room was full, room this size, it was full, and I got beat up for about an hour. So it'll be interesting to see if I'm going to get beat up talking about the cloud today. Micro Warehouse is my employer. As I said, we're distributors, we deal with Microsoft. I've spent the last 2.5 years talking about Azure. Azure. I'm better known for Hyper-V and stuff related to Hyper-V, but that's all I've been doing for the last 2 years, 2.5 years. And it's starting to take hold now. We distribute our stuff in Ireland, but also throughout Europe. So if you're looking for storage space hardware from data on, or if you're interested in doing hyper-converged infrastructure, that does work. As opposed to some brands that don't. And then GridStore, which is all flash-based hyper-converged infrastructure for Hyper-V. So I don't know if Alex is distributing the slides, but there'll be some stuff in there anyway. So, who here likes tapes? Who here, honestly, let's be honest here, who here is using tape for their backup? Damien, I thought you'd go away with tape, even backup full stop.
No, we have some tape.
Who here is not using tape for backup? And the rest of you are liars.
And the rest doesn't do backup.
Who doesn't do backup?
You'd be surprised. You could get an interesting conversation if you ask who doesn't do backup. Tape drives. Invented in 1951 for computer backup and storage. 1951. We still were using radio sets that were the size of a fridge freezer. Rock and roll hadn't been invented. The first hydrogen bomb had not exploded. And we're using the backup media from that time. At least most of us are. Most of you in this room are the exception because you tend to be a bit more forward thinking. That's why you come to this at the weekend. Not many IT pros attend events, and even fewer of those attend them at the weekend. So you definitely are the exception. Russia still hadn't launched Sputnik to do the first orbit of the Earth. I'll tell you about the backup media that a few of you are admitting to using. It's old technology. Now we know the whole 3-2-1 strategy, 3 copies of our data, 2 different sites, yada yada yada. We're supposed to have offsite backup. Who here has offsite backup? Okay, the rest of you don't. We're supposed to keep our backups in another location, just in case something goes wrong. The copies of our media we're keeping on our primary site get damaged, get lost, whatever. We still have the stuff in the secondary location. That is often very expensive, especially if you're doing disk-based backup. It can be very expensive. If you're doing tape-based backup, yeah, there's an expense because you're dealing with the likes of Iron Mountain or whoever, but there's also a time factor and a reliability factor. Those tapes are being taken by a courier who's on minimum wage. They get the bag full of tapes and they carry them very, very safely like a baby in the back of a van, and they store them very carefully there in a styrofoam box. And the laugh at the back is exactly what I was expecting to hear. They don't. They're minimum wage. They get the bag full of tapes, they bang them on the ground, hit the doors on the way out, and throw them into the back of the van and drive off, hitting every speed bump at maximum speed. Those tapes will not survive very long. When you have that situation where you need to call back a tape and restore something because your boss is in your ear screaming, how quickly does that tape get back? Same day? Next day? Depends when you call. And how long does it take them to get back there?
Does it ever?
It's a good question. And in the case of an actual disaster, if you're relying on tape as part of your disaster recovery plan, well, that's going to be interesting because the flood that's hit your area probably has affected the tape vault as well. Or maybe the courier died in the fireball that hit in that Michael Bay inspired city. We need to modernize our backup. We are clinging to stuff in the past, and it's time we joined the rest of the world in 2016. In 2016 we have lots of cool things. We've got broadband, we've got Taylor Swift, we've got all that stuff. So just shake off the past and join the rest of us here in 2016. Move to disk-based backup and start looking at online backup as our offsite storage for backup. Now for those of you who don't do backup, one of the reasons, well, your reason could be you're negligent, you don't care, or it's too expensive. Now I've heard the line that backup was too expensive because that organization had just too much stuff. Online backup could suddenly become an interesting option because the storage is cheap and is potentially infinite. From an accountant's point of view, we change the way we buy. Instead of doing a big purchase up front, we switch to a monthly bill. So we're no longer presenting with the financial people with a bill for €500,000 saying we need some sort of storage in another location to store our backups, and it needs to be X times bigger than our production storage. And they'll look at you and laugh, send you on your way and tell you to buy some tapes. Instead we can switch over to an OpEx model, get a bill every month based on what you use, not on what you think you might use. And this is where Microsoft come in with Azure Backup. Azure Backup is a brand because there's actually several products that fall into this bucket of solutions. Online backup is not new. There's a good chance you're using online backup on a personal capacity or even on a professional capacity. So lots of people have used things like Mozy Pro and Carbonite and stuff like that for personal usage. Mozy Pro do have business solutions, so do Carbonite. There's a product out there that is very widespread usage, though most people don't know they're using it. It's called Assay. It's an Asian online backup solution that's used by a lot of hosting companies who then sell their capacity to system integrators, who in turn then sell that service to customers, so businesses who want online backup. And the whole thing is white labeled so companies can put their logos on it and stuff like that. Central management portals, lots of reporting. A lot of usage. That's the dominant product here in Ireland for online backup. Azure Backup is relatively new compared to those things. As Microsoft realizing, A, they have huge amounts of storage available to them at very low cost, and they have a good bit of experience in doing backup. Now whether you might like it or not, that's another conversation. But they do have a lot of experience. And the people who are doing Azure Backup are actually the same people who did DPM. It's all one group. It's just like the people who do Azure Site Recovery for Dior are the same people who do Hyper-V Replica. The people who do Hyper-V for Azure as well. So it's a very interesting way that Microsoft have shaken up their development. One of the side effects as well of some of the changes that Steve Ballmer introduced before he left was Microsoft is now capable of introducing change very, very quickly. Something called sprint development. A large number of program managers, architects and developers working on one problem to get it done and get it out the door as quickly as possible. Get it into a preview state, get customers giving feedback. Because feedback is now very important to Microsoft, particularly in Azure. When they get that feedback, they can change the product very, very quickly. Introduce new functionality and features based on your demands. The more of you who vote for those changes, the more pressure there is to get those things done as quickly as possible. Azure Backup, in terms of hybrid backup, so backing up on-premise into the cloud, there's 3 possible solutions. The first is Mars Agent. And this is where we take an agent from Azure and install it on a PC or a server, and it will back up that PC or server. Now, I have to make this very clear. That Mars agent right now can only back up files and folders. Okay? Its management is done from that machine it is backing up. That will change. Microsoft will be adding more support functionality, so it'll back up Hyper-V, databases from Exchange and SharePoint and SQL Server, and so on and so forth. They will also be adding a central web console to that agent as well, so you can manage lots of agents from a central point. Doesn't support tape. It keeps 9,000 up to 9,999 recovery points. That's configurable by you, so points in time that you can restore a file from. And it will retain data for up to 99 years. Those of you who are worried about security in the NSA or the GCHQ or Bundes, whatever, having a look at your data, it is encrypted before it leaves the machine using AES 256. Microsoft forces you to encrypt it. They force you to generate a very strong passphrase, and Microsoft never has that passphrase. You lose the passphrase, that's it, your data's gone. It's random ones and zeros. So if you use Azure Backup in Germany North in the new region, in Bundes, whatever it's called, because it's too long for me to pronounce, I'm sorry, comes along and says, hey, Deutsche Telekom, give us that data from Gerhardt. Well, Deutsche Telekom will be forced to hand over the random ones and zeros, maybe. They're random ones and zeros. It's going to take a long time to brute force that AES 256 back to something meaningful again. So it's true trust, no one security. Now, the feedback on Mars Agent was, you know what, pricing's great, but it's restricted to files and folders and we don't have a centralized management. Can you give us something better? And Microsoft said, well, we've also got System Center Data Protection Manager. What you can do is you can take that Mars agent and install it on your backup server, and it will do your normal backup to disk and then forward your data to the cloud. With the same rules about encryption and retention. But now it supports files and folders, Hyper-V, SQL Server, SharePoint, Exchange, and vSphere support will be coming this year. So Microsoft will be backing up vSphere, which is rather interesting, using agentless backup. And some people said, yeah, that's great, I've got System Center. Those some people are a very small number of people, because very few people as a whole in the market have System Center. The licensing is actually expensive. I saw one surprise look. You're part of the few, the 3%. And System Center is actually, for the vast majority of business, an expensive solution. If you're big enough, it's actually a very affordable solution. And then there are those who said, well, I don't want to use DPM. Well, if you use Veeam, Veeam actually have their own way of forwarding backups to Azure. Talk to Mike Ressler, he'll tell you all about it. He's here somewhere hiding in the VIP room, just down that way. So feedback was, it's great, but we need more. There's a lot of us out there who would like to use online backup. Mars Agent isn't enough, DPM, it's just not available to us. So this is when Microsoft released the Microsoft Azure Backup Server late last year, to absolutely zero fanfare. Marketing kind of don't want you to know that this thing exists. Because Azure Backup Server, if you look at all the features, it backs up files and folders, it backs up Hyper-V, SQL Server, SharePoint, Exchange, vSphere support will be coming. It has the same retention model, it has the same security model. It's free to acquire. You don't have to pay for a license to get Azure Backup Server. It looks kind of identical to DPM because with two small differences, it actually is DPM. But you don't need System Center licensing to use it. In fact, you don't have to buy anything to use it. It is an Azure service. And that's the focus of the talk today, is the Azure Backup Server. And I'm not surprised that only a handful of you have heard about it, because it has been kept. Shh, don't tell anyone. We need to sell more System Center. Which is unfortunate. So, frequently asked questions, is my data encrypted? I've talked about that already. Yes. Before it leaves your server, it is encrypted using AES 256. Is my data compressed? Yes, it is compressed before it's even encrypted, which is important ordering. It's not deduplicated. However, there is a lot of feedback to add deduplication into the storage. What I will tell you is the compression is actually very effective. Can I have a local restore cache? Yes. If I'm using DPM or the Azure Backup server, it backs up the local disk first. That will keep maybe 5 or 7 days in the local disk, and I will forward my data to the cloud, where I can keep it for up to 99 years. If I need to restore from the last 5 days, I restore from the local disk. If I need to go beyond that, I restore from the cloud. Does it support Windows Server 2003? Is that important to anyone? Come on, be honest. Microsoft ended support last year. Come on, join us here. Taylor Swift, shake it off, all that stuff. Can I ship my first backup on disk? Because I've got terabytes of data or petabytes of data. My first backup is going to be pretty big. The answer is yes. There is a process for doing it. It's actually rarely used. And right now it's a bit of a pain in the ass to do. I was told not to say swear or anything. So that was for you, Mike. There is a process for importing your data on SATA 2 or SATA 3 disks. A job can span up to 20 disks, each disk up to 8 terabytes in size. So it's quite a amount of data you can ship off. Retention model is completely customizable. X amount of dailies, X amount of weeklies, you pick which of your dailies is your weekly. X amount of monthlies, you pick which of your weeklies is your monthly. And X amount of yearlies, you pick which of your monthlies is your yearly. So,
but it's a differential, but so you don't have deduping, but it's still differential, right?
Yeah, it's incremental. It's a synthetic full,
Okay.
call it that.
Okay.
So it keeps enough to be able to restore from any point in time that you're retaining. Another element of Azure Backup is the ability to back up virtual machines that you're running in Azure. Because up until about a year ago, we did not have a supported way to do that. So there were lots of people running virtual machines in Azure, and they didn't have a way to back up those virtual machines. A lot of people just assume that when they get something in a hosting company, it's backed up. I worked in the hosting business. No. You want something backed up, you pay for that thing. And that's the way it is in Azure too. So you run a virtual machine in Azure and you want to back it up, you pay for that backup service. And that's Azure Backup for IaaS virtual machines. It's a very simple setup. It's got a nice new user interface that came out about 2 weeks ago. And it works. My own website was lost about a year ago, running on a VM in Azure. I had a massive MySQL corruption, which I wasn't able to restore from because I am pretty awful at MySQL. And I just restored the entire VM, and I was back up and running in about 40 minutes. So, Mars Agent. Just to do a comparison, I've got my machines running on-prem or roaming users or whatever, and I want to back up their files and folders, or my documents or whatever. I create in Azure a backup vault. And that's based on block blob storage, LRS or GRS. So it's the cheapest storage in Azure. And we've got 2 different types of resiliency models. I can keep 3 copies in Dublin, and if I want, I can have another 3 copies in Amsterdam or vice versa. I deploy the agent from the backup vault to my 3 machines. And then I have console where I register each of my 3 machines, and I'll create an encryption key. Now it's up to me if I use the same encryption key on all my machines, or I have a different encryption key for sets of machines or individual machines.
You can have one key.
Yeah, if you want. Data will be backed up, it'll do its first full, and then it'll do its incrementals on a daily basis, based on the schedule that you set. And that's it. It's very simple. All the admin is done from each machine. Now what will come is a central portal that will manage each of these. And eventually we'll also get support for backing up Hyper-V and SQL Server and Exchange on that as well. Spore Matrix, it's what you would expect. 2008 SP2 and later, Windows 7 and later. It only backs up files and folders. Nothing but files and folders. Only files and folders. It doesn't back up system state. or VMs. It only does files and folders. If anyone asks about anything other than files and folders, the person in front or behind them has permission to kick them in the nether regions. Okay? You'd be amazed. Every time I do that spiel, someone always sticks up their hands and goes, do systems stay? And you see the other people going, I don't know if it happens afterwards. So, Azure Backup Server and DPM is pretty much the same concept. It's disk to disk cloud. So local disk retention, so we can keep maybe 5 or 7 days or whatever it is you want to keep on disk locally, and then forward or encrypted and compressed data to the cloud on a scheduled basis. Let's just talk about how it works. So I've got my legacy backup server. This was the oldest name I could think of that's still not around. Has anyone ever heard of a Legato networker?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I did 2 days of intro training on Legato networker back in 97 or 98. Actually 97. And I came out of that 2 days of training on Legato networker going, what the was that? And I did not know how to do a backup. Or a restore. That was an awful, awful product. So I got my legacy backup. It's backing up all my stuff to local disk or tape or whatever. And I decided I need to modernize. I need to do disk to disk backup and get with the the reality of the situation that this stuff sucks. I need reliability. So I'm going to replace that, and I'm going to start off by having an Azure subscription, creating a backup vault, and download either DPM from my Microsoft Volume Licensing, or Azure Backup Server, which is freely available to download to anybody. All Azure Backup Server requires when you set up is registration details for this backup vault. So I download my registration details, and I register this machine with the backup vault. So there's one Mars agent actually installed on this machine. That's it. And that Mars agent is feeding back details of what's being backed up and everything up to Azure. And I have one console. I'm no longer managing my backups all down here. I have one console for managing my backup server. So it's just a normal backup server in terms of concept. I create my protection jobs, so now I'm backing up all my stuff. So I'm backing up my PCs, my laptops, my servers, my SharePoint, my Hyper-V VMs, and down the road, my vSphere VMs. And then I can select some or all of that data to be forwarded to the cloud. So if I lose this, I can deploy a new one of these, bang in the secret key, and I can restore from the cloud. Or, if I just lose a VM, I can restore it from local disk really, really quickly. Hopefully over my 10 gig networking or 100 gig networking, because I'm not stuck in the past with 1 gig. So what is MABS? Like I said, almost identical to DPM 2012 or 2. The cost, free to download. You don't have to pay anyone to get Azure Backup Server. Now there is a cost to using it, but it's a low cost, and it's OpEx. It's a bill at the end of the month, and it's very predictable. You pay for protecting instances, and I'll come back to that later. Each thing that you back up is an instance. So if I back up a VM, that's an instance. If I back up a collection of files and folders on a single file server, that's an instance. And if I choose to forward my data to Azure, I pay for the storage that I'm consuming in Azure. Because I can use Azure Backup Server without touching Azure at all. I don't need to send anything to Azure. All that Azure is going to get is some accounting information to say what instances I backed up and how big they were. So it can send me an invoice at the end of the month. It includes the SQL license it requires. That is only to be used by MABS. It needs an Azure Backup Vault to be configured. You don't actually have to use the Backup Vault. So you can have the Backup Vault that's empty. It costs exactly 0 cent per month to own. The only differences with DPM are we don't need System Center. We don't get tape support. DPM does have tape support, although it's quite complicated to use, I find. MABS does not support tapes at all. And we don't get update roll-ups at the same frequency. DPM gets them on a quarterly basis, so I tend to recommend holding off from System Center updates for about 2 months until someone else has gotten the bug fixes from Microsoft. In terms of system requirements, it's the same as DPM 2012 or 2. It's very basic server hardware, not much memory. The key thing here is the disk that you're going to back up to. If you want 5 days of retention, you need 5 times the capacity of what you're, or not 5 times, 1.5 times the capacity of what you're backing up. So if I have 10 terabytes of virtual machines that I'm backing up, I'll need 15 terabytes of backup storage. The difference is, my VMs are sitting on SSD or 15K disk. My backup is probably SATA or RAID 5 or storage spaces. So very, very cheap storage. What we can back up, full list can be always found here, but basically Windows Server Hyper-V 2008 and later, SQL Server 2008 and later, Exchange 2007 and later, SharePoint 3 or 2007 and later, clients Vista and later. I always find it interesting that no one ever thinks of backing up PCs, yet that's where you tend to find most of the active data that's of value to the business. You can do that quite happily with this. How much bandwidth do we need? I'm surprised no one has asked. The answer is, it depends.
That's why nobody asked.
You'd be amazed. Most times when I'm teaching this stuff, that's what I do a lot of the time for my day job, is teach this stuff, show people how to use it and deploy it and configure it. Someone will always ask, how much bandwidth do I need? Because every single country seems to think that they own the problem of bad bandwidth. Because of the Scandinavians here, they don't have that problem. Though they will say their 200 meg connection to their home is too slow. I was delighted to get 45 meg this week.
300.
300, I hate you.
Soon one day.
Oh, I hate you even more. The first backup is the big one. That's the painful piece. Then after that is your incrementals, or your synthetic fulls. You basically need enough bandwidth to get that data up in the time frame that you require to be up there. The Mars agent, when it does an incremental backup, it starts and it finishes when it finishes. MABS or DPM, we can actually configure a window to say it must be done in that time frame. If that first full backup is going to be too big, you can do a disk transfer process. So this is the dialog that you'll see in the wizard. It's universal between Mars, MABS, and DPM. You click the offline backup option, and then it's going to ask you to input a whole bunch of information. And basically at that point I would say, do a search on your favorite search tool that works for Azure Backup disk transfer. That's the phrase that works for me. And you'll get the step-by-step instructions. Basically what it's going to do is going to do a backup to some temporary local storage. And basically it'll have a file that has your backup in it, compressed and everything, and encrypted. And then you're going to use a tool called the Drive Prep tool. That's going to copy that backup to a SATA 2 or SATA 3 disk. And the disk is going to be plugged into a device like this. You can't use a NAS, you can't use a USB caddy. There are 4 different devices that Microsoft support. 3 of them were only available in the US and have since been discontinued. One of them is actually USB 3 and available in Europe. The one I got it on eBay from some place in Arizona. It cost me about $100. It was actually this one from StarTech. The disk will be encrypted using BitLocker. And then you'll create an import job in the Azure management portal, so it's the old user interface, in a storage account to import your disk or disks. And then you give the bundle of disks in a nice styrofoam package to a courier who will take it to the Azure data center. You hand it over to the Azure operators, and they'll start plugging those disks into something very similar to this. The data goes into a storage account and then is automatically moved to Azure Backup Vault, and then your on-premises Azure Backup will see that that's happened and start doing incrementals. That's how the process works at the moment. So how much does all this stuff cost? Well, I said you can download the Azure Backup Server for free. Using it does have a charge. I said we back up instances. An instance is maybe a collection of SQL databases on a single SQL server. If I have 2 SQL servers, that's 2 different instances. If I have 2 file servers, that's 2 different instances. It could be a VM on a Hyper-V host, that's an instance. If I have 10 VMs, that's 10 instances. And there's a price based on the size of the instance. So up to 50 gigs, $5 per month. 50 to 500 gigs, $10 per month. Over 500 gigs, it's multiples of $10. So if I'm doing Azure Backup Server, and I'm only backing up to local disk, this is actually the price I pay every month for using it. If I don't send anything to the cloud, there's no storage cost from Azure. But if I do store it to the cloud, this is the thing I need to get the pricing of. Block blob storage, the hot tier. It doesn't use the new cold tier yet. And we can have either LRS or GRS option. The cheapest one there is 2 euro cent per gig per month. 2 cents per gig per month for backup storage. 3 copies of it in your region of choice. I think that's pretty cheap. What I've found so far in our usage of Azure Backup Server is the instance charge is the larger share of the cost. The storage cost for sending my backups to the cloud is negligible. We have, I think it's about 1.7 terabytes of VMs in Azure at the moment. That's the storage consumed in Azure. It's actually about 3.5 terabytes of VMs in production. It's 1.7 terabytes of storage. It's costing us roughly 39 euros a month for storage in the cloud. I mean, why wouldn't you? Really? And it's encrypted and everything. If there's more about this that you want to learn, there's plenty of information there to find. Have I got that much time left? Jeez. I'm way under schedule. I can dance, badly.
How about questions?
Questions? Yeah, go with questions.
What's the catch?
What's the catch?
Yeah.
The catch is, and this is very clever from Microsoft, this is what they call an on-ramp. They want you, so you might be a cloud resistor, but you'll say, you know what, this isn't replacing me, it isn't replacing what I do, this adds to what I do. Like Azure Site Recovery does as well for a Dior site in the cloud. I'm not replacing what I do on-prem. I get this technology and I start to experience Azure. And when I go into the portal, I start discovering other things that I can do. That's what this is. And I've seen this personally now with some of our customers. So we had a customer who tried out Azure Backup. Next thing I know, I got an email from them saying, that was brilliant. We're actually rolling this out to the rest of our customers and getting rid of the more expensive Irish company that was in there beforehand. Oh, and by the way, can you start training us on Azure Site Recovery for Dior sites? Because we want to start rolling that out to our customers. That's the catch.
So it's very sticky, in other words. So
Yeah, it's to get you in and experience Azure and discover the other things that Azure can do. Because most people, especially IT pros, are completely unaware of what we can do with Azure. There's a huge capacity of services and functionality in there, from the infrastructure stuff, the PaaS stuff, and even the bits in between.
So, I also have some questions. How fast is it when you deliver that unit? Another thing is also my question number 2. How fast is it to restore?
Restore, how good is your bandwidth? I know one person who complained about the restore speed. And it was a funny story for me because he actually worked for the networking company that provides the networking for Azure, or one of the companies that does. So he actually had more bandwidth than any of us could ever dream of.
he was spoiled.
Yeah, he was actually probably hitting disk speed issues at that point. It was mad. And the disk transfers, from what I've seen, if everything goes perfectly, it's about a week.
You probably won't use this backup as a primary restore solution. This is the
You would.
in the complete disaster.
No, you would use this as your primary. For disaster recovery, you use a disaster recovery solution.
No, I mean that you won't restore from remote backups until you have the local.
Oh yeah.
So
You would. So if you were using DPM or MABs, you would restore from local disk. If you're a true diehard Veeam customer, you would restore from local disk, not from the cloud.
So basically the catch here is the scalability, because what's an interesting part is the local storage, so this local cache. So how you will scale this cache, how you will process all these VMs concurrently to store them locally. This is an interesting part. maybe you can shed some light. Because, okay, we have this one local server, that's
Yep.
fine. That's fine for large environments when you need to.
Then you're looking at multiple DPM servers if you're truly that large.
Yeah.
And then you have central management of your DPM
But
servers.
then you
What's
have
coming down the line is a web version of central management of your DPM servers or map servers as well. So they basically just become tools.
So
building blocks.
Do they
Sorry?
have these tools for this central management of several?
At this point, you can do central management of DPM from a DPM console itself.
No, from
If you want to do it from the cloud, it's not there yet. It's currently in development. And that means it'll be with us very, very fast because that's the nature of development in Azure. Once they start on something, unless they hit a business issue, it tends to turn around very, very quickly. Anyone else?
How is the Microsoft Store Simple appliance fitting into this? Is it?
Are you a Store Simple customer?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Anyone here a Store Simple customer? Okay, that's the normal answer. Store Simple is a very complicated conversation. I'm not the right person to ask about Store Simple. I've sat the training, and I personally, this is not the opinion of Microsoft, the MVP program, or my employer. I personally don't like Store Simple. I don't think it fits into a Microsoft stack, personally. I would rather Microsoft do tiering of storage from the file system, because immediately I would reckon almost every person in this room would start using it, because everyone is suffering from storage capacity issues for legacy data that's not been touched in years. Going out and saying you need Store Simple with this massive enterprise agreement for Azure, and this thing is going to cost you a lot of money, and oh yeah, Microsoft will give it to you for free. But the reality is you're going to have to pay for import duties and all this stuff to get it from Mexico, where it's made by Seagate, or subsidiary of Seagate. And then you realize, or you find out, that you could have bought it from that company in the first place. Then you start wondering, who actually owns what of Store Simple? And I haven't been able to get a good answer on that myself. Store Simple for me, I don't know. Yeah, it can be used as an alternative to this. So you could say, let's use Store Simple as an isolated target for backup, and we back up to that, and then that does its clever. What I consider personally, not that of Microsoft, the MVP program, or my employer, a rather dumb storage tiering system to eventually get your data to the cloud. And then restoring from that could be interesting because you don't know if your blocks are coming from Azure or from the local storage.
Just one additional question. So I was using in one project DPM for backing up to Azure, and we saw that sometimes, we don't know why, but the DPM was not using the whole bandwidth that was allocated to.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that?
That could have been a deliberate thing.
The problem was in two different locations. One location was on Long Island and the other one was in San Diego. So it's not ISP or something, it was something with...
So when you install DPM for Azure support or you install maps, the Azure Backup agent Mars is installed on that backup server. If you open up the console for that Azure Backup agent, over on the right hand side, I think the option you're looking for is change properties. In there you will see traffic shaping, and there is a default policy in there. And you can tweak that policy based on day of week and time of day. So you can define your working day, you can say what your max bandwidth for a work day is, and outside of the work day. So I'd say have a look at that.
By default it's not using everything.
It's off by default, I believe, but I would still tweak it, and if I was seeing issues beyond that, I would open up a support call with Microsoft.
Needs the backup server only access to the VM or also to the hypervisor?
Sorry?
Needs the backup server also access to the hypervisor?
Yeah, so you can back up your running VMs, Windows or Linux.
But when the customer is hosting on a shared platform, can he only have access to the VMs?
The hoster can back up the VMs as long as the hoster owns the hosts.
Okay, but not the customer itself by...
The customer, no. And Alex is telling me to stop because I have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.